Morning everybody. Now here today we are going to see the compiler. Basically this particular subject, basically this particular so basically this particular unit, if you see for the computer student, they have whole subject only for this compiler, and in SSP this particular compiler unit, or you can say compiler system software, that system software is divided into the two different units, unit 3 and unit 4. So that means half part you have to see in the section 1 and the half part you have to see in the section 2. So today we are going to cover the half part which is given into the third unit and in section 1. So this is nothing but the compiler. So before going to start the compiler and the details regarding the compiler, the first important thing is we have to see why there is a need of the compiler. Basically you are studying the PP also, the programming languages. So if you see in early days the programs are written only in the binaries, but right now you are writing the program by using the higher level languages. It might be C, it might be C++, it might be Java. And if somebody told you that write down simple program addition of two numbers but write down in a binary, because computer can understand only the binary language. Previously it was happened. Previously the peoples are written program in a binary and that program is given to the computer. Computer can understand the binary language and that program can be easily get executed. But right now it is very difficult to write down the program in the binary, and hence some languages are come which are more familiar with the human being, and these languages are called as the higher level languages which you are using right now. You are using the C, you are using the C++, you are using the Java, and n number of languages are there. But the thing is that suppose you have written one program in the higher level language, and if you want to execute that program, you have to give that program as an input to the computer, but the computer understand only the object or the binary language. So it is not possible for the computer to read or the program which you have written in the higher level language. Computer cannot understand it. So somebody should be there which acts like a mediator, which will take that higher level language as an input and convert into such a language, that is the binary, which is understandable by the computer, and your program can be get executed easily. So that's why the system software comes in the picture, and that is called as the compiler. So if I want to define the compiler in a single sentence, I can say that compiler is nothing but a system software which takes input in any higher level language, convert it into the machine code which is understandable by the computer, and then your program can be easily get executed. And that's why there is a need of the compiler. Right now we are not going to see the compiler regarding to a particular language. That means not regarding to the C or not regarding to the C++. Here we are considering in general which are the different types of the principles, or the which are the different things, types of the things are required to design the compiler. So general compiler we are going to see over here. So out of that, the first point, or you can say this is nothing but the overview of the compiler. The diagram suggests you exactly what happens in the compiler and how your higher level language program gets converted into the machine code. So this is nothing but the phases of the compiler. Now if you see this particular diagram, I have given the different colors to the phases. Now already you have studied the assembler. In case of the assembler, you have studied the two pass assembler. What are these two passes? The first pass is nothing but the analysis, and the second pass is nothing but the synthesis. So analysis and synthesis, these words you are using many times. What is the difference exactly between the analysis and the synthesis? Analyze means whatever the input you are getting, you are going to analyze that input and you are writing some observations. This is nothing but the analysis phase. Now in case of the assembler, the first pass or the first phase is nothing but the analysis phase. So what happens in that analysis phase? Whatever the input program which you have got in the assembly language programming, that input program gets read by the first pass of the assembler, analyzed it, and some observations are written. And what are these some observations? These some observations are nothing but the different types of the tables. What is the main task of the assembler? Convert the assembly language program into the machine code. But that task never takes place in the analysis. Analysis is nothing but you are writing down some observations which are helpful while you want to do the actual task. Similar type of the approach is used in case of the compiler also. My compiler task is fixed. Whatever the higher level language I have got as the input, I want to convert it into the machine code. That is fixed. But similar like a assembler, some predefined tasks or some observations are made over there, some observations are written over there, which observations are used for the actual conversion of the higher level language into the lower level language. And according to that, compiler is also divided into the two, you can say, phases, the analysis phase and the synthesis phase. So whatever in the third unit you have to study, this is nothing but only the analysis phase of the compiler. Now here I have used the colors. The first three phases comes into the analysis phase, and the second three phases comes into the synthesis phase. So in today's lecture, we are going to cover the lexical analyzer as well as the syntax analyzer. Now in short, first I will give you the overview of the different phases of the compiler. So compiler is made up of or is made by using the 6 different phases. What is meant by phase? Actually, what is the output of the previous phase is given as an input to the next phase, and in this fashion your compiler works over there. So here in case of the analysis phase, the first 3 phases are lexical analysis, syntax analysis and the semantic analysis. So what, instead of describing that diagram in detail over here, first we will see the lexical analysis. We will see what are the tasks of the lexical analysis. In short, I have mentioned here the token is nothing but the output of the lexical analysis. But suppose I want to tell here the token is the output of the lexical analysis. But what is meant by token? How can you understand what is meant by token? So that's why what we will do, first I will explain the lexical analysis and then we will come to this picture. Then you can understand what is meant by the token, right? So this is a simple example. That type of the example is asked in the university questions. One statement is given. Suppose here I have taken one statement, C is equal to A plus B. Such a type of the statement is given, and the question is that you have to write down the output of each and every phase of the compiler, right? So right now we will see first lexical analysis and then we will come to this our particular example. Now this is the lexical analysis. The software which is performing this lexical analysis is called as the lexical analyzer, or sometime it is called as the scanner. So sometime the question might be come into the paper that explain the functions of the lexical analyzer, or sometime it may be a scanner. So these are the synonyms, so you should be able to understand this. Now what is a lexical analyzer? So for that I have taken one example, and that example is a simple C program, right? So it's a simple C program, void main, int ABC, and those goes on. What lexical analyzer does? So read this first statement. It reads the program from left to right, one character at a time. Now this is a program. So what is the first character in this program? Void. Sorry, word is the void. But it cannot read the word at a time. It reads only one character at a time. So first it will read the V, then it will read the O, then it will read the I, then it will read the D, and goes on. But while reading this character, lexical analyzers separate out the meaningful words from this program. So for example, here void is one meaningful word and another meaningful word is main. But the thing is that it reads only one character at a time. So how it is possible for the lexical analyzer to understand this is my meaningful word? So for that, See the next line, it reads the program from left to right one character at a time, and it will find out the delimiters. So delimiter is nothing but the ending of that meaningful word. So if you see this program, void, right? So each and every meaningful word in a C is always ended with which character? Null character, right? So null character is simply used as the delimiters. So it will read one character at a time till it is not getting the delimiter. Once it has got the delimiter, it will find out that this is my meaningful word. Next thing is, this meaningful word is simply called as the lexeme. Okay, so meaningful word is called as the lexeme, and then some predefined classes are there. This lexeme will be fit into one predefined class, and this becomes a token. Now I will give a very simple example what is meant by the classes. For example, I have got the heights of the 100 persons, and the three predefined classes are given to me, that is short, average, and the tall. The classes are always predefined. So the definition of the classes is like that. If the height is less than 5 feet, I can say that that person is a, and these classes are again depends on for which country you are making the classes. I'm considering according to the Indian peoples. So if it is less than 5, I can say that this class is the particular short. If it is between 5 to 6, I can say that this is a average. And if it is greater than 6, I can say that it's a tall. So my classes are predefined, right? So I will take the first height which is given to me. Suppose that height is the 5.6. So I will match that height with all the three classes. Where it is matched, that height will be go into that particular class. So 5.6 will be go into the average. The same thing is happened here. The lexeme gets converted into the token. But how it is get converted into the token? Some predefined classes are given. Whatever the meaningful word I have got from the given program, that meaningful word I will call it as the lexeme. I will compare that meaningful word with the all four classes or five, whatever the predefined classes are given to me. Where it is matched, then that lexeme becomes my token, and that class is nothing but the type of the token, right? So before going to see the token, we should always know which are the different types of the classes, because in case of the height example, the classes are predefined. Here also classes are predefined. So which are the different types of the tokens? So which is given over here. It might be a keywords, it might be a identifiers, it might be a operators, and it might be a constant. Now what is meant by keywords? In case of C, some words are reserved. That words you cannot used as the user defined variables. So these are the reserved words. So if that particular word is the reserved word, it gets converted into the token, and whose type is what? Keyword, right? Next is the identifier. Identifier is nothing but some user defined entities. So it might be a variable, it might be a function name. So these are the user defined entities. If that word is a user defined entity, it goes into the identifier. Similarly, the different types of the operators are present. So it might be a arithmetic operators, it might be a logical operators. So different types of the operators are there. If it matches with the operator, its type become a operator. And last one is the constant. In assembler, you have called this constant is nothing but the literals, right? What is a constant? Some constant value, some integer value, some float value. If you are getting these values, its type becomes a constant, right? But if you will see the different books, you can get the different names for these tokens. For example, if you follow the Donovan, in case of the Donovan, they have made only the three different types of the classes. And what is these three different class of type of the classes? The first is the terminal terms. Okay, so in case of the term, the keywords and the operator, they have combined in a single class. This is your terminal table, right? For the constant, they have given the name as the literal table. And for the identifier table, they have keep the same name as the identifier table. So it depends which book you are referring, right? So these are nothing but the different types of the tokens. Now we will move towards our example. Now this is an example. This is in general I have taken. Finally, all the three tables you can combine in a single table, and this single table is called as the universal table. So such a type of university question also I have taken. So we will take one example and we will write down all these tables separately, and we will write down also the universal table, right? But here for the understanding purpose, see, the first my word is the void. Void is which type of category? It is a reserved word. That means it goes to the keyword. But again, each and every keyword should have some identification number, because if next time the same keyword you should get a same identification number. So for keyword, the identification, for void, the identification number is 1. The next word is what? Main. Again, what is its type? Again, it is a keyword. So it becomes a keyword 2. But if void comes once again in the same program, what should token I have got? Same keyword 1. It should not be a different. Similarly, opening bracket, then closing bracket, and goes on, dot dot dot. So then A comes. So A is what? A is the identifier. It's a user defined entity, so it becomes identifier. So for identifier I have written here ID. So ID 1. But whenever next time A comes, it should get the same token as ID 1. So this is the same token I have got as ID 1. And this is nothing but the token. So what is meant by the token? It's simply separate out all the meaningful words from the program, matches with some predefined things which you are having, and then convert that given word into the token, right? So for that, see, some words I have used here. That word is nothing but the pattern. So whatever the predefined classes are there, I will call it as the pattern, or rules, some rules. So whenever the word comes, I have already pattern with me. I will try to match with that pattern. If it is matches with the particular pattern, I will declare that is the token and its type of the token. So in case of the Linux, that one practical also you have to perform in SSP. In case of Linux, one predefined tool is there, and that is called as Lex. By using this Lex tool, you can write down a program for the lexical analyzer. And always in case of the Lex, these patterns are written, because you have to predefine classes, and that means nothing but the patterns. So you have to define the patterns. So patterns are defined in the form of regular expression. Now what is a regular expression? In the talk already you have studied. What is meant by the regular expression? It is simply some operands and the operators. For example, suppose I want to write down the 0 plus. This is my one regular expression. So can you tell me some strings which is made up of this regular expression? It is nothing but occurrences of the 0 from 1 to many. So that is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and goes on. So suppose I have written 0 star. What is the difference between this and this? Occurrences of the 0 from no to many. So only epsilon gets added over here, and the remaining zeros will be as it is. So this is a simply regular expression. You can write down the regular expression like this way also. Right. So this is 0 or 1, and overall brackets occurrence is from 1 to many. So if you want to write down any pattern, so this pattern is written only in the form of regular expression. But whatever this Lex utility, that utility you have to study in the 6th unit. But just for the sake of simplicity, I want to tell you how the pattern is written. Now what we will do, we will write down a simple pattern for variable in C. So can you tell me how can you declare the variable in C? Tell me. So while you are writing down a variable in C, some rules are there. For example, what is the first rule? Your variable cannot be start with digits. It should be always start with either character or underscore. Again, you know how many alphabetic characters are there? 26 characters in lowercase, 26 characters in uppercase. Again, your C is the case sensitive. So if you are written in a lowercase, variable in a lowercase, so that always it should be in a lowercase. If you have changed one character, that becomes a separate variable. So simply, how can I write down the rule for the variable? In our case, this is identifier, right? What should be the first character? A to Z. And if there is a sequence, you can separate out it by the hyphen. So small a to small z. Or it might be a capital A to capital Z. Or it might be a underscore. Complete the bracket. So that means one character out of this are required. Either it may be a small case letter, either it may be a uppercase letter, or it may be a small underscore. Next, you can write down a multiple characters in the variable also. Then you can add digits also, and again it is from n number, whatever is the delimiter, right? So followed by, for the followed by, you have studied in talk, this is called as the series 0.1. So it is followed by what? It might be a digit from 0 to 9. It might be a characters from A to Z. It might be a characters from capital A to Z. And suppose another you want, you can add it. But for the simplicity, we will take only this. And again, how many occurrences of these characters? From no to many. So what should I add over here? Star. So this is the way to write down a particular pattern. So this pattern we have written it from the for the identifier. Similarly, keywords are also mentioned, constants are also mentioned, operators are also mentioned, and according to that, where it matches, that particular token gets displayed. So now we will come to our main diagram, lexical analysis. So what will give the lexical analysis as the output? This is nothing but the sequence of tokens. For each and every meaningful word, one token is generated. Now here see in this particular diagram, C is equal to A plus B. Now this is the input statement which is given as an input to the first phase of the compiler. This is nothing but the lexical analysis. So what I have done it for? C is your what? Identifier. So I have written ID 1 equal to is operator. So what is written for operator? OP1. Next is ID2. Next is OP2. Sorry, OP1, OP2, and last is ID3. So this is nothing but the sequence of tokens generated for a particular statement. So this we have taken it for only C is equal to A plus B. In reality, this sequence of tokens are generated for whole program. Got it? So this is the first phase. But besides of this generation of tokens, lexical analyzer is doing some other work, other functionality also. That also we have to see. So the first, or you can say the functions of the lexical analyzer, most of time this question is came into the exam. If you see the previous question papers, you will get this question. What is the function of the functions of the lexical analyzer or the functions of scanners, whatever is the word. So if you see it, the first function is it defines the rule, Rules are defined in which fashion? In the form of patterns, like this way, and stores that pattern in the form of regular expression. So all the patterns are written only in the form of regular expression. Identifies the delimiters. Why there is a need of the delimiters? Because we want lexical analyzer want to separate out the words from the given program. So always there is a need of the delimiters. Next thing is produces of stream of tokens. So already we have studied what is meant by the token. So token is generated for each and every word. Next important function is it eliminates the blank and the white spaces which are in the program. Now if you write down the C program, now you see the example also. See, void main, then this curly brackets, then I have put some spaces over here for understanding the program easily if somebody read that particular program. But is that white spaces makes any difference in my output? No. If I will remove that white spaces, still I will get the same output, and if it remains over there, it will give me the same output. So that means if there are some blank spaces, if there are some white spaces, it doesn't matter with my output. So why should create the tokens for such a type of the white spaces? No need. So that lexical analyzer is having one important function. It eliminates all the blank and white spaces from the program. Right? Next, it generates the symbol table. Now if you see this diagram, you will get the two different types of the table which are attached to each and every phase. Which are these two tables? The symbol table and the error handler. So that generation of the symbol table is the responsibility of the lexical analyzer. We have studied that symbol table in assembler also. So what you have done in case of the assembler, whatever the symbols are there, you are putting that symbol into the symbol table. There are different fields for the symbol, that is the serial number, actual symbol, and the address of the symbol. Similarly, the symbol table is mentioned or is created in compiler also, but which phase is responsible for that? The lexical analyzer is generating the symbol table. And out of these four, what will be going to the symbol table? Keywords, constant, identifier, and operators. Identifiers, because identifiers are the user defined. It generates the symbol table as well as one another table also we have you have seen to the right hand side, that is the error handler. Okay, so each and every phase of the compiler is responsible for generating the errors. If any error which is made by the programmer is made by the user, that error should be get displayed to the user that these are the errors in the program, remove these errors. So lexical analyzer generally gives the three types of the errors in the program. The first error is the undefined symbol. Now everybody is familiar with this particular error. Suppose you have written one program and if you are not defined, suppose int ABC I have written over there. Suppose I have written only int AB and then I have used the statement C is equal to A plus B. What type of the error it will give to me? That C symbol is undefined. So who is going to give that error? Lexical analyzer. Another error is invalid character. For example, my variable should be always start with the character. If I have started with the digit, that is invalid. So lexical analyzer will give me that type of error. Next thing is non-terminated comments. So that another functions is not written over here, but the function is that if any comment which is made into the program, that comment is also get deleted or get eliminated by the lexical analyzer, because the comments are used only for whom? Only for the user purpose. At the time of execution, there is no need of such a type of the comments. So why should keep that comments into the executable code, there is no need. So that comments are also get removed from the program. So that is also one of the function of the lexical analyzer which is not mentioned over here. And if any unterminated comment is there, non-terminated comment, then definitely it affects my program. So that such a type of the error is also shown by the lexical analyzer. So this is the first phase of the compiler lexical analyzer. At last we will see the different types of the questions which were asked in the previous university question paper with the answers also, right? So you got the first phase. The next is syntax analyzer. If you see the diagram, my next phase is nothing but the syntax analyzer. So whatever the stream of tokens, whatever is the sequence of tokens is generated over there, that sequence of tokens or the stream of tokens is given as an input to the next phase of the compiler, and my next phase of the compiler is nothing but the syntax analyzer. So for the syntax analyzer, the first input is what? Stream of tokens. But with the stream of tokens, one another input is also required by the syntax analyzer, and this is nothing but the context free grammar. Already you have studied this context free grammar in the TOC, in the talk. So in TOC, one point is mentioned there, that is the Chomsky hierarchy. Chomsky hierarchy explain you which are the different types of the grammars are available. So Chomsky hierarchy given you the 4 different types of the grammar. That is, type 0 is nothing but the unrestricted grammar. Type 1 is the context sensitive grammar. Type 2 is context free grammar, and the type 3 is the regular grammar. So out of these 4 grammar, the grammar which is required for the parser is nothing but the context free grammar. Now if you want to make the definition of any grammar, it is defined into the 4 tuples, that is V, T, S, P. V is nothing but the set of non-terminals, T is the set of terminals, S is the starting symbol which belongs to the, that means non-terminal, and the last one is the number of actual productions, right? So if you see the all 4 grammars, the definition for all the grammar is same. There is no change in the definition. Only the all grammars are differ from each other by what? In the style of writing the productions. Okay, but we are not going to see the remaining 3 grammars because we are interested here only for context free grammar. So I will give you directly example of the context free grammar, how the productions are written in a context free grammar. See, for example, the grammar I have written over here, E gives E plus E or E star E or ID. Now generally, in case of the context free grammar, the restriction is that the left hand side of this production is made up of a single, exact single non-terminal, and here I have used that single non-terminal is nothing but the capital E. So that capital E gives capital E plus E, capital E star E or ID. Now you have seen one question in case of the talk, the grammar is given to you and the string is given to you, and the question is that derive that string from the given grammar, right? If my string is the valid string, definitely it gets derived from the given grammar, and if my string is invalid, it cannot be get derived from the given grammar. So same scenario, same thing is used in a syntax analyzer, that is called as the parser. What happens over here? The tokens are given as the input, the context free grammar is given as the input, whatever the statement you have written in the program, that is nothing but your input, right? And it will check whether that input, whatever you have written over there, is syntactically correct or is there any syntax error. So same thing is used. If that particular statement gets derived from the grammar, the syntax is correct. And if it is not possible to derive from the grammar, there is a syntax error. And what is the main function of the syntax analyzer? Syntax analyzer tries to find out, is there any syntax error into the program? So simply if gets derived, no syntax error. If not derived, there is a syntax error. Again, that derivation is written into the two different formats. Just remember your talk. Either I can write down in a horizontal way, or it might be a tree structure, and that tree structure is called as the parse tree. For example, if you see this particular phases example, you will see over here that this particular stream of token is nothing but my statement. It gets converted into the such a type of parse tree. If parse tree is generated, there is no error into the syntax. And if parse tree is not generated, there is an error into the syntax. And that type of error you can see over on your screen. Getting my point? So syntax analyzer, or it is called as the parser. Now the same type of question which you have seen into the talk, the same type of question is also asked in the SSP also. A grammar is given, a string is given, and you have to derive that string from the grammar. At last we will cover all the university questions, so in that I will tell you that thing also. Again, if I want to derive the, and see, string is made up of only with what? String is made up of only with terminals. It cannot consider a non-terminal. If the non-terminal comes in the string, it becomes a sentential form. And the question is always you have to derive the string, not a sentential form. Now if you see in this particular example, I have taken, can you tell me in this particular example which are the terminals and which are the non-terminals? Generally non-terminals are written by capital letters. So which are my non-terminals here? Only capital E. Other than that, whatever is there, these are my terminals. So which are the terminals? Plus, star, ID. So your string should be always made up with terminals. So can you tell me? ID plus ID star ID. So this is the string, right? Again, the string is made up of, or the string can be derived by using the two different types of the things. Either my derivation is the leftmost derivation, or it might be a rightmost derivation. Always my derivation is started with the starting symbol, and the starting symbol is nothing but the E. So always it is started with E. Now that E can be get replaced by its with any productions, and by doing replacement and replacement you should reach to the string which is given over there. The string which is given for me is the ID plus ID star ID, right? Now I have three options for the replacement of E. I can replace E by the E plus E, or E star E, or ID. So always you have to check what is the string is required, and according to that the replacement takes place over there. So the first I have taken E get replaced by E plus E, right? Now here what is meant by the leftmost and what is meant by the rightmost? Leftmost means after the arrow, which is your first non-terminal, that first non-terminal should be get replaced always. Then such a type of style is called as the leftmost derivation. Now if you see over here E plus E, out of that this particular E is my first non-terminal which is at the left hand side. So this E get replaced by what? ID. Then it becomes a ID plus E. Now only one non-terminal is there, so that means either if you consider the leftmost or you consider the rightmost, it is the same thing. Now here this E get replaced by E star E, then E get replaced by ID, then this E get replaced by ID. So string gets derived from the given grammar by using the leftmost technique. Similarly, you can use the rightmost technique also. So E gives E plus E. But here now, this particular E should be get replaced because this is right hand side's first non-terminal. So this E get replaced with E star E. Then this E get replaced with ID. Then this E get replaced with ID. And then this E get replaced with the ID. You are getting the same string by using the two different ways, that is the leftmost and the rightmost. Okay. Now this derivation technique is required for the parser, because I already told you, if the string gets derived, there is no syntax error, and if the string is not derived, there is a syntax error. Now if you will see the parser, generally parser is divided into the two different types, that is the top-down parser and the bottom-up parser. I will explain you according to the derivation what is meant by the top-down and what is meant by the bottom-up. Now if you see the previous example, if you have gone from the starting symbol to the string, such a type of approach is called as the top-down approach. And if you will go by reverse way, that is from string to starting symbol, such a type of approach is called as the bottom-up approach. And this bottom here, from starting symbol to string, we will call it as the derivation, and if we will use the bottom up, this is called as the reduction, right? So depends on that, the two types of the parsers are there. And which are these two types? The top down parser and the bottom up parser. If the derivation method get used, this is my top down parser, and if the reduction method gets used, this is my bottom up parser. Now the two different types of the parsers you have to study in case of the top down. This is nothing but the recursive descent parser, and another is the predictive parser. Now if you see the practical of this SSP, that is the SDL, in that case you have to implement the recursive descent parser. We have to implement that recursive descent parser in a C. Okay, so recursive descent, predictive, and if you see the bottom up parser, there are two types of the bottom up parser. Either it is a shift reduce parser or it is a LR parser. Again, this LR parser get divided into the three types. SLR parser, SLR is called as the simple LR, CLR is called as the canonical LR, and LALR is called as the look ahead LR. But in today's lecture, it is not possible for us to cover all the parsers. So we will try to cover these first two, recursive descent parser and the predictive parser. Okay, so we will move towards our top-down parser category. Now first, before going to detail in both the parsers, I want to explain you which are the different types of the features are there for the top-down parser, so that we will see. The first feature you will see over here, it uses the derivation process. Now I explained you what is meant by the derivation. If you go from starting symbol to the string, this is called as the derivation, and top-down parser uses the derivation process. Next, now these 2 points are very much important. It will not accept the ambiguous grammar, and it will not accept the left recursive grammar. So that means in exam, if one particular grammar is given and the question is that, or solve that questions regarding to either recursive descent parser or regarding to either predictive parser, and if in that grammar, if there is ambiguity, what should you have to do? You have to remove the ambiguity. If there is a left recursion, you have to remove the left recursion, and already both the points you have studied in a talk. In case of talk, the simplification of the context-free grammar, in the simplification, these both the points you have studied. What is meant by the ambiguity and what is meant by the left recursion. That questions are also coming in SSP. If you see the previous question papers, there is a question on ambiguity as well as there is a question on left recursion. So we will take that by taking the example. But right now, first we will see which are the different points which are required for the top-down parser. So got it? The left recursion is not also allowed, as well as the ambiguity is not also allowed. Next thing is it uses the backtracking method. So I will explain you the backtracking method also. And due to this backtracking method, the parser becomes slow. And if the parser becomes slow, definitely it takes a lot of time for the compilation, for the execution. So to remove that drawback, it uses one technique, and that is called as the left factoring rule. If the left factoring rule is used over there, automatically due to the backtracking, your parser becomes slow, that particular drawback get removed. And for that only it uses the left factoring rule. And the last is, this parser is called as LL1 parser. Now I will explain you what is mean by the LL1, or why this parser is called as the LL1. The first L stands for whatever the input is given to the parser, whatever the string is given to the parser, that string is always get read from left to right. Always it get read from left to right, and the first L stands for this. Then the second L stands for, there are two different types of the derivation methods. My derivation methods are either it is a leftmost derivation or it is a rightmost derivation. Always it uses the leftmost derivation. It never uses the rightmost derivation, and that's why the second L comes. And always it look ahead one character, and this one stands for this, and hence these parsers are called as the LL1 parser, or the grammar which is used for this parser is also called as the LL1 grammar. Got it? Now we will see what is meant by the ambiguity, what is meant by the left recursion, and what is meant by the backtracking, and what is meant by the left factoring rule. Because if example come either for the recursive descent parser or maybe for the predictive parser, all these four steps you have to apply over there. Okay, so we will start with the what is meant by the ambiguity. But see, if I want to remove the ambiguity, first I should be able, is there any ambiguity? I should be able to find out, is there any ambiguity? If I'm not able to find out ambiguity is present or not, how it is possible for me to remove from the given grammar? So how can we find out is the given grammar is ambiguous? So very simple technique is for that. That technique already you have studied in talk also. Suppose this is the grammar. Take any string, and if you are able to derive that string by the two different way, this is called as ambiguous. What is the ambiguity? A multiple solution. Simply this is called as the ambiguity. So that means for a simple string, if you have got the multiple solution, the given grammar is ambiguous. Multiple means more than one. Now for example, we will consider the same thing. My string is fixed, id plus id star id. This string I want to derive. Now for example here e. So I will take e plus e. Now I will use the leftmost. So suppose this e gets replaced by id plus e. Then this id plus e star e. Then this id plus id star e. And then id plus id star id. So by using the leftmost technique, I have derived the string from the starting symbol. Now what I will do, my starting symbol will be the same and my string is also same. I will use the same leftmost technique, but if I have got a little bit change in the process, I can say that it is a different solution. And if this thing is happened, the given grammar is called as the ambiguous grammar. Let us see we are getting it for this grammar or not. Now see, this E get replaced by E star E. Can I do that? Yes, because I can use any production, but technique should be same. If we are derived by using the leftmost, here should be leftmost. This is not, ये ऐसे नहीं होना चाहिए कि if you use leftmost here and rightmost here and then you are saying that it is a ambiguous. No, either leftmost or rightmost. So E star E. Now tell me, for leftmost this E I should have to replace. So by using, so I will replace that E by E plus E, and then this remaining star E will be as it is. Getting? Next, this E get replaced by ID. Next, ID plus ID star E. Next, ID plus ID star ID. So I have got the same string. In both the cases I have used the leftmost, right? But the two different structures. I have got the first change here also, here itself. Here I have taken E plus E and here I have taken E star E. If you have got at least one change, you can say these are the different solutions, right? And such a type of the grammar is called as the ambiguous grammar. But if you want to remove the ambiguity, there are no such rules for the removing the ambiguity. So basically you can remove any ambiguity by considering which productions are responsible for the ambiguity, rewrite these productions. And if you rewrite these productions, the ambiguity gets removed. So here what I have done, this E, first production is E gives E plus E. So what you have to do, due to this E plus E there is ambiguity. So what I have done, out of this 2E, one E get replaced by some other new non-terminal. So this E gives E plus E becomes E plus. Now this E get replaced with T. Okay, my next production is E gives E star E, but E get replaced by what? T. So definitely I should have to write down T gives T star. Once again, suppose I have written the T, still ambiguity will be there. So that T get replaced with by some other new symbol. Suppose I have taken F. Okay, and finally F gives ID. But while you are taking any new symbol, you have to write down like this way, because you are replacing E with T, hence E gives T is also required. Here T gets replaced with F, hence T get F is also required, and F gives ID. Finish. This is the grammar after removing the ambiguity. So first task is, sometimes the question is only on that one particular grammar is there, and the question is that check whether the given grammar is ambiguous. If ambiguous, remove the ambiguity. Got it? The next thing is removal of left recursion. Again, if I want to remove the left recursion, what should be first task? What should be the first task? I should be able to find out, is there any left recursion? If I have got the left recursion, then it is possible for me to remove it, right? Now, how can we find out whether the given grammar is left recursive or not? So for that, we will take the same example. Now this is my grammar after removing the ambiguity, right? Now I will check, is there any left recursion? So checking of left recursion is very easy. See the left hand side non-terminal. If that non-terminal occurs in any production at the first place, you can say there is ambiguity. Sorry, there is a recursion. Now E gives how many productions I am having? 2 productions, E plus T or T. Out of these 2 production, in any production, suppose this left hand side occurs at the first place, I can say that there is a recursion. So is here any recursion? Yes. Where is the recursion? This E occurs in the first production at the first place. So that means there is a recursion. Now consider this particular, if A gives A alpha 1, A alpha 2, A alpha n, beta 1, beta 2, beta n. Now I will tell you what is meant by the alpha and what is meant by the beta. Find out the productions in which there is a recursion. Such a productions are called as the alpha production. And the productions in which there is no recursion, such a type of the productions are called as the beta productions. Now for this particular, I will write down here, E gives E plus T or T. So this first production belongs to alpha and the second production belongs to beta. Here I have only one alpha and one beta, but there might be suppose there are 5-6 productions, and out of that 5-6 productions there might be a multiple alpha, there might be a multiple beta, and that's why I have taken over here alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha n, beta 1, beta 2, beta n. Now again, this is related to alpha, but what is exactly alpha? Right? The symbol which is get recursion over there, excluding that symbol, whatever the term is left over there, that is called as the alpha. This is my alpha production. So which symbol is repeated over here? Capital E. Excluding that capital E, whatever is left, that is my alpha. So this is my alpha, and I will never write down alpha 1 because single alpha I am having, right? And the productions in which there is no recursion, whole production is called as the beta. So fortunately there is only one symbol, so this is my beta, right? Now you have to rewrite these particular productions into the two different productions so that the recursion gets removed. Now which are these two different types of the productions? If you see over here, A and A dash, I will tell you how to write down. Write down all the beta with A dash, and then A dash gives, write down all the alpha with A dash. For example, here in this case, what is A? E, right? So what is the first task? A gives, so that means E gives. E gives, write down beta with E dash. So how many beta I am having? Only one beta, so that is T E dash, right? And next, A dash gives, so that means E dash gives alpha with E dash. So what is the alpha? Plus T E dash. And finally, for this E dash, attach epsilon. After writing all the alpha with A dash, finally attach the epsilon. So you got these two productions over here. E gives T E dash and E dash gives plus T E dash or epsilon. Similarly, I can do for this also. Here is also recursion comes over because T, right? Same thing. How can I write down this? T gives F T dash and T dash gives star F T dash or epsilon. Are you getting over here? And finally, F gives ID. Is there any recursion? No. If no recursion, write down this group production as it is. So this becomes F gives ID. So this is the grammar after removing left recursion. Got it? This is the second step. And the third step I want to explain you, left factoring. Left factoring is very easy. Suppose I have production. In this production, there is no need of the left factoring. I will tell you what is by the left factoring. Just observe this example. A gives alpha beta or alpha gamma. In such a productions, if any term common between these two production, take this common part separately. But that common part should be at the left hand side. So if you observe this both the production, what is the common? Alpha. Alpha is coming over here, alpha is coming over here. But that common part should be at the left hand side. So can I take this alpha as common? So this alpha is taken as a common over here. And for the uncommon part, I have added the A dash. And hence A dash gives beta or gamma. Now see this particular example. Now see, the first production is S gives this and this. So in these two production, is there any common? Yes. What is that? Small a, capital A and small b. So this I will take as the common. So see, S gives small a, capital A and small b. And for the uncommon part, what I have added? S dash. And hence S dash gives. What is left over here? Capital B. And what is left here? Nothing. That means absolute. Got it? So this is called as the left factoring. But if applicable or if required, then only apply. Now in this particular example, if you will see, is there any left factoring is required? No, because here are two production, nothing is common. Here two production, nothing is common. If not common, then there is no need of the left factoring. Got? And finish. These three steps are similar. What is the dissimilar between the two parsers? We have seen two parsers in the top down. Either it is a recursive descent parser or it is a predictive parser. So again, it is important for us what is similar and what is different. So what is similar? Both not accepted ambiguous. That means in both the cases you have to remove the ambiguity. Second is both not accept left recursion. That means you have to remove the left recursion. Next is apply the left factoring for both. Next thing is both accept the LL1 grammar. Already I have explained you the meaning of LL1. But what is the difference? So only one difference is there. In case of the RDP or the recursive descent parser, you have to write down the program. And in case of the predictive parser, you have to write down the parse table. So program I will define you in short. The important thing is if you see the previous question paper, in most of the question paper, you will get the question on predictive parser. On the 70 to 80% in previous question papers, there was a question on predictive parser. Okay, so that is important for us. But we will see the recursive descent parser also, in what way it is write down in the form of program. Now this is the recursive descent parser. So first I have given you the steps to solve this particular example. First three steps are same for both the parsers. So which are first three steps? Remove the ambiguity in both the parser required. Remove the left recursion in both the parsers required. Remove the apply the left factoring rule in both the parsers required. Only both the parsers are differ in this last one. So I will explain you this last. Okay. Now for writing down a program, this is very simple. Consider all the non-terminals as the function, and non-terminal gives some productions are there. Consider that production is nothing but the definition of this function, and that's all. If you see the example, this is very simple example. Directly I have considered such an example where there is no ambiguity, where there is no recursion, because already we have studied that. Okay. Now this is my final. All after using all the first three steps, whatever the answer I have got over here, and now it is important for me to write down this particular grammar in the form of program. Now it is very simple. See the program. First is what? S gives E. Capital S gives capital E. What I told you, consider this non-terminal as a function. See, S is the function, and definition of the function is nothing but its production. So what I have written, S inside that E and close the S over. What is the next production? E gives T dash. Okay. See, E gives, E is the function and definition is T dash. Finish. Next is E dash gives plus TE dash or epsilon. Now if terminal comes, then the writing style is different. Here at first position there is a terminal plus. Now see how to write down. See, E dash gives if input is equal to plus, then advance T E dash and close the function. Here there is no need of else part of this if, but when there is no need of else part, if epsilon is attached with the production. If epsilon is attached, don't write down else, but if epsilon is not attached, then write down else. Okay, so this is also over. E dash gives plus T E dash. Next is T gives FT. So this is FT dash असेल बहुतेक ते. T gives FT dash. Here T dash is required. F T dash. Next is T dash gives star FT dash or epsilon. T dash gives, now star is my input. So if input is equal to star, advance FT dash and close. Next is, now this is important, F gives ID. Now ID is what? Terminal. And no epsilon is given over here. That means I should have to write down the else part. See, F gives if input is equal to ID, advance. Nothing is given, so only advance. Else, printf error. Got? This is the recursive descent pass. Okay, now the same example we will take for the predictive parser. But the predictive parser is something different. Here on single step, most of the time the question is came. On one step out of these all, I will explain you what is that step, and separately we will take the example. The first is remove ambiguity. Yes. Remove left recursion. Yes. Apply left factoring. Yes. Find out first and follow functions. Then instead of program, construct the parse table. Then by observing parse table, the sometime question is that check whether the given grammar is LL1 or not. And finally, one string is given and you have to check whether that string is accepted or rejected. So this is a little bit big question. If the whole question comes, that may become for the more than 12 marks. But sometime only on this particular step, most of the time question is there, that is first and follow. If you see 80% in 80% question papers, you will get this question first and follow. Okay. So I think so there is no need to explain the first three steps. Directly we will go to the first and follow functions. Now this is the first. Now what we will do, I will write down the example here, and then we will see the rule, and according to the rule we will find out the first and follow. Or the same example, E gives T dash, E dash gives plus T dash epsilon, T gives Ft dash, or T gives Ft dash, T gives star Ft dash. Same example is there. Now how to find out the first for this? Now there is a complete rules are there. You should be able to remember the rules. If you know the rules, then it is possible to find out the first. Now see, the first thing is, for all terminals, first of that terminal is itself. Okay. Now from this, can you tell me which are the terminals are here? Plus is one terminal, then star is one terminal, and ID is one. अजून एक ऍड केलंय का मी तिथं? एक ब्रॅकेट टाकलंय ना? इथं फक्त आपण चेंज केलाय थोडा. Okay, so this is one terminal, then opening bracket is terminal, closing bracket is terminal, and ID is terminal. So the first of terminal is itself. So according to that, the first of plus is itself. Then similarly, first of star is itself. First of closing bracket is itself. First of, sorry, opening closing bracket is itself. And first of ID is itself. So whatever the terminals are there, the first of that terminals are itself. Okay, next. If you will see here all these things, right? Plus, star, ID, opening bracket and closing bracket. Next thing is first of non-terminals. Now that is very much important. See the productions. Now how many non-terminals are there? 5 non-terminals are there: E, E dash, T, T dash, and F. So I have to find out the first of all these non-terminals. So what is the rule for that? See, if you want to write down the first of the particular non-terminal, see only the productions of that non-terminal. That means if I want to write down the first of E, then I have to see the productions of only A, not others. Okay. Now, if you see the productions of any non-terminal, each and every production can be start with the 3 different options. What will be these 3 options? प्रत्येक प्रोडक्शनची स्टार्टिंग 3 वेगवेगळ्या प्रकाराने होऊ शकते. कुठले ते 3 वेज आहेत? आयदर तुमचं काय असेल, टर्मिनल असेल, किंवा नॉन टर्मिनल और epsilon. Right? Now in this, out of these 3 possibilities, if it is started with terminal and if it is started with epsilon, you have to write down this directly into the first of that particular productions. So according to that, tell me, is there any such a type of productions? Yes. Which are that? E dash gives plus T dash and epsilon. If I will observe both the productions which are started with, one is started with plus and one is started with epsilon, directly add into its first. So first of E dash is plus and epsilon. Is there any such a type of same production? Yes, which is that T dash gives. So what happens in T dash gives? First of T dash is equal to star and epsilon. But the question comes in the picture, if my production is started with non-terminal. That is the problem. Now I will explain you the general rule for that, and then we will move towards our example. See the last third rule. So what is written over there? If there is a production, capital X gives capital A, capital B and capital C, where capital A, capital B and capital C all are non-terminals. So what happens there? In that case, the first of X equal to first of A. First position non-terminal, hence first of X is equal to first of A, except epsilon. That means in case of the first of A, if epsilon is there, don't add epsilon. Only add remaining characters other than epsilon. But if epsilon comes, then what happens? Instead of that epsilon, we have to add something. So in that case, again add the first of B also. But again there might be a chance that first of B again contains the epsilon. Then add first of C also. But again there is a chance that first of C again contains the epsilon. In that case, then add epsilon. Right? If there is no any symbol in front of that, only then you have to add the epsilon. Otherwise you have to take the first of next, first of next, first of next. But if epsilon comes, only in that case. Now see, my first production is what? E gives T dash. Now I want to write down the first of E. Tell me, how can I write down? First of E is equal to what? First of T. And what is first of T? बघा, वो भी अभी निकालना बाकी है. First of T is equal to, म्हणजेच first of E is equal to first of T. Right? So it is not visible. Here I will write down. First of E equal to first of T. And first of T still we are not getting. So first of T is equal to first of F. And what is the first of F? अरे हे पण लिहायचं राहिलं ना आपलं. I can get first of F. What is the first of F? Tell me. Opening bracket आणि ID. Her production, you have to check all the productions. So that is ID. So that means first of E equal to first of T equal to first of F, and what it is? Fortunately, first of F doesn't contain the epsilon. If first of F contains the epsilon, then what will happen? First of T में आपको और क्या ऐड करना पड़ेगा? First of T dash. और first of T dash में अगर epsilon है तो फिर epsilon ऐड होगा. और अगर first of T में epsilon आता है तो फिर first of E dash भी. But fortunately, first of F doesn't contain the epsilon, then there is no need of recursion. Got it? So these are the first. So we have got first of E, first of E dash, first of T dash, then first of E, first of T, first of F, as well as all the terminals. See this. The second window shows the first of terminals, and the third window shows the first of non-terminal. Got? On this, definitely question there. That means there is more chance of question on first and follow. If you see the previous question papers, the question was there. So this is the first. Now within a single lecture, it is very difficult for you to understand this. But if you remember the rules, whatever the rules are here, use that rules, you will get the first. There is no difficulty for getting the first. Similarly, for follow there is also rule, right? So according to that we will find out the follow for this. So what is the follow? Now the first important point is follow is only for non-terminals. There is no follow for the terminals. Terminals doesn't having follow. So how many non-terminals I am having? E, E dash, T, T dash and F. त्यालाच फक्त follow येणार. Terminals doesn't contain the follow. So first I will find out the follow of starting symbol. There is a simple one rule is there. If S is a starting symbol, then the follow of S is dollar. I will explain you what is meant by the dollar in the example. ज्यावेळेस आपण string check करू, whether the string is accepted or rejected, dollar is always input end marker. हर string को आपको कुछ एक end देना पड़ता है, so that end is nothing but the dollar. So according to this rule, follow of, tell me, E. Here my starting symbol is E, so follow of E is equal to dollar. The first rule. Second, now check. Now see, for the first we have seen its productions. Now for the follow, don't see the left hand side, see the right hand side first and find out. I want to write down the follow of E. Find out wherever E comes at the right hand side. So is there any E comes at the right hand side? Yes. According to the first rule, dollar is added. Next thing I have to check, is there any E comes at the right hand side? Yes. Where it is come? So follow of E is the first of next symbol. So E के बाद कौन सा symbol है यहाँ पे? Closing bracket. So follow of E is first of closing. And what is the first of closing? Itself. Terminal चा first itself है ना? काय add होईल याच्यात आता? Closing. Is there any E comes? No. Finish. That means for follow you have to see the right hand side. For first you have to see the left hand side. Next is follow of E dash. Now check. Where E dash comes? Tell me. Huh? TE dash. Now what I am saying? Follow of E dash is nothing but first of next symbol. But there is nothing in front of E dash. Then what to do? No. In such a cases, I have written over here, see. A gives alpha B. And then follow of B I want to write down, but there is nothing in front of in front of B. So in that case, follow of B equal to follow of left hand side. So here follow of E dash equal to what? Follow of E. And what is follow of E? Dollar closing. अजून कुठे E dash आलाय का? Yes. In front of E dash, is there anything? No. So again follow of E dash is equal to follow of E dash. Same thing will come. Is there any E dash? No. Finish. Then I want to find out follow of T. Tell me. Huh? कुठं आहे T? इथं आहे. So follow of T is equal to first of E dash. And what is first of E dash? First of E dash is what? Already we have काय आहे फर्स्ट ऑफ ई डॅश प्लस आणि ऍप्सिलॉन. पण मला आता ऍप्सिलॉन ऍड करता येत नाही. आय कॅनॉट ऍड द ऍप्सिलॉन. सो इफ ऍप्सिलॉन कम्स इन द फर्स्ट ऑफ नेक्स्ट, बघा समजा असं आहे ए गिव्स अल्फा बी बीटा. आय वॉन्ट टू राईट डाऊन फॉलो ऑफ बी. So follow of B is equal to first of beta. But if my first of beta contains epsilon, then I cannot add epsilon. In that case also I have to add the follow of A. So that means first of epsilon contains the epsilon. First of E dash contains the epsilon. Epsilon सोडून बाकीचे लिहून टाका. So plus is written, and instead of epsilon what I have to do? Follow of E. And काय फॉलो ऑफ ई है? डॉलर क्लोजिंग. नेक्स्ट इज फॉलो ऑफ टी डॅश. सांगा. फॉलो ऑफ टी डॅश इज इक्वल टू नथिंग इज देअर, दॅट मीन्स फॉलो ऑफ ई. अजून कुठे टी डॅश आलाय का? अरे टीचं अजून राहिलं नाही ते. फॉलो ऑफ टी इज इक्वल टू फर्स्ट ऑफ ए डॅश आणि ऍप्सिलॉन आलाय म्हणून पुन्हा फॉलो ऑफ ई डॅश म्हणजे सेमच येईल. अजून कुठे टी आलाय का? नाही. टी डॅश इज दिस. नाउ हियर इज ऑल्सो टी डॅश कम. फॉलो ऑफ टी डॅश इज फॉलो ऑफ टी डॅश, सेम थिंग. फिनिश. Then I want to find out follow of F. Tell me. Follow of F is equal to first of T dash. आणि बघा फर्स्ट ऑफ टी डॅश काय आलाय आपला? स्टार आणि ऍप्सिलॉन. फक्त ऍड काय करू शकतो? स्टार. आय कॅनॉट ऍड ऍप्सिलॉन. सो इन्स्टेड ऑफ ऍप्सिलॉन व्हॉट आय हॅव टू ऍड? See, follow of F is equal to first of T dash. First of T dash contains star and epsilon. So I have to add only star. And instead of epsilon, follow of T. So what is the follow of T? Plus dollar close. Right? So this is the follow of all the functions. So this is the first and follow. See, I have got follow over here. Okay. And now the construction of parse table. How much? Find out करेंगे. See, the next part is construction of parse table. Again, there are rules, and according to that rules, you have to follow such a type of the parse table. Now, it is not time right now. We don't have such a time to explain you the construction of parse table. But in the PPT, I have provided all the rules. Okay, just I will tell you the answer of one question, that is whether the given grammar is LL1 or not. If such a type of question is came, you have to consider all the cells, all the squares you can say. If in a single square there are two rules, then the given grammar is not LL1. And if in a single cell maximum one rule is there, given grammar is LL1. Can you tell me the given grammar is LL1 or not? LL1. See, each and every square, how many entries are there? Either null or exact one. What I want to tell you, suppose for this particular cell, suppose two entries are there. एक आली समजा तुमची E gives T dash आणि समजा अशी काय आली E gives epsilon. In the same cell, two entries, then the given grammar is not LL1. आणि एका सेल मध्ये मॅक्सिमम एकच एंट्री आली तर LL1. सो दिस ग्रामर इज LL1. इथं कुठेतरी डबल एंट्री दिसते का तुम्हाला? नाही. राईट. नाउ हिअर वी विल स्टॉप, बट आय वॉन्ट टू टेल यू द क्वेश्चन्स रिगार्डिंग टू दॅट. आता हे पुढचं स्ट्रिंग चेकिंग वगैरे आहे. क्वेश्चन्स मला सांगायचे तुम्हाला. बघा पहिला क्वेश्चन आहे, व्हॉट डू यू मीन बाय टॉप डाऊन पार्सर, एक्सप्लेन विथ द सुटेबल एक्झाम्पल. बरोबर. मग कुठलाही टॉप डाऊन पार्सर तुम्ही एक्सप्लेन करा. फर्स्ट एक्सप्लेन ऑल द फीचर्स, देन आयदर एक्सप्लेन द रिकर्सिव्ह डिसेंट पार्सर or explain the predictive parser. Next question is, what are the basic tasks of the scanner? I have given you the tasks of the lexical analyzer, so write down all the tasks. Next question is, compute the first and follow for the grammar given below. These all questions are university questions. Already we have solved this example. Next question is, what is the lexical analyzer and enlist the various data structure used in a lexical analysis. तसंच एक एक्झाम्पल आहे, पुढे मी सांगतो तुम्हाला ते एक्झाम्पल. 5th नंबरचा क्वेश्चन आहे, विथ द हेल्प ऑफ सुटेबल एक्झाम्पल एक्सप्लेन द प्रॉब्लेम ऑफ लेफ्ट रिकर्शन इन अ टॉप डाऊन पार्सर. एक लेफ्ट रिकर्शनचं एक्झाम्पल एक्सप्लेन करायचं. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज, डिस्टिंग्विश बिटवीन द टॉप डाऊन अँड बॉटम अप पार्सर. त्याचं आपलं बॉटम अप झालंच नाही. एक्सप्लेन विथ एक्झाम्पल द टर्म ambiguous grammar. You can explain it. Then for the C code given below, give the different tables that would be generated as a output of the lexical analysis. आपण जो प्रोग्राम मगाशी बघितला ना, त्याचे टेबल तयार करायचे आहेत, तर ते एक शॉर्ट मध्ये मी सांगतो तुम्हाला. And explain the role of lexical analyzer in compiler design. List the types of the errors reported during the lexical analysis phase. Same. Construct the leftmost derivation for the string using this grammar. This question is also asked. Explain the problem difficulties that are faced during the top down parser. म्हणजे त्याच ambiguous, backtracking, left factoring, then left recursion. So these are the, and explain the working of the recursive descent. Already we have. Just I want to explain you this question. हा क्वेश्चन फक्त बघा. This program is given. Now first make the 3 different tables for this program, and these 3 different tables are identifier table, literal table and the terminal table. In case of the identifier table, put all the user defined entity. In case of the literal table, put only the constants, and in case of the terminal table, put only the keywords and operators. Now I will start from the main. Main is what? Keyword comes over here. Then opening bracket is the operator, come here. Here keywords and operators. Now here first I have got this A. A is the symbol, that means it goes to the identifier table. Sorry, the A टाकायला पाहिजे. A is required over here. Then the sum is also come over here. N is also come over here. AVG is also come over here and goes on. फक्त कॉन्स्टंट इकडे टाकायचे. कॉन्स्टंट काय काय येतील? 10, 0, 1. रिपीट करायचे नाही. There is no need of repetition. Right? So in this way I have made identifier table, literal table and the terminal table. And finally combine all these tables and give the name as the universal table. So what happens in a combination? पहिलं काय आहे? Main. Main is what? One main and belongs to the terminal table. So what I have to write down? 1 trm main. TRM stands for the terminal. Here don't add the constants. Here comes only the two things, the terminal as the and the identifier. बघा next काय होतं माझं? This one, 2 and this. So 2 trm this, 3 this and goes on. फक्त आता समजा हा A आहे किंवा हे सम आहे, तर सम काय आहे माझा? 2 सम. Sum 2 and ID. Got? So this is the last question. हा पण क्वेश्चन 12 मार्क्स पर्यंत येतो. Okay. If anybody want any question, ask me. I think so. No question. Okay. Thank you. There. Thank you.